Hello students, welcome back. So in this session, I'm going to be talking about functions, specifically inbuilt functions. So why do we need functions? They make your code cleaner, reusable, and easier to manage. So let's look at some of the examples of inbuilt functions. Print, input, int, float, length, range types. These are all your inbuilt functions. We have been using print, by the way. If you recall, we have been printing a lot of stuff like lately. So that's your print statement right there. Int, this converts something to an integer. Range, type, it actually tells you type what it does. It tells you what type the data is. Is it an integer? Is it a float? And so on and so forth. Then you have map, filter, sorted, any, tuple. You have all these. By the way, you can see the list of all your inbuilt function by going to this website right here. So if you click on this, this will give you the list of all inbuilt functions. This is official Python's website. Now let's look at few of them. I want to see the list of all my inbuilt functions that's offered by Python. So I'm going to use print statement, okay, and then I'm also going to use dir function. So your print function and dir function. So these are your inbuilt functions. I'm going to use my two inbuilt functions, print and dir, to see my other inbuilt functions. That's pretty cool. Using inbuilt functions to see inbuilt functions. All right, let's run this. Let me copy this, come over here, paste it, and run it. All right, and there you go. It gives me all my inbuilt functions. For our purposes, the most important ones are right here towards the end. Starting from here, absolute value, all the way up to zip right there. These are the important ones. So the relevant ones are these ones. So let me copy this, bring it over here. Actually, Control A, Control C. And there you go. Okay, so these are the relevant ones. These are the keywords: true, false, none, etc. Now if you go on top, you will see true and false over here. These are arranged alphabetically, by the way. So your T, true, is right there. This is a keyword. If you remember, these are my Boolean variables, true. Likewise, for false, you will find false over here. Right there, there's your false, that's another one. And none, none is another one. These are the ones that we have used very often. None is right there. So these are your important keywords. These are inbuilt keywords. These are Python inbuilt keywords. The relevant inbuilt functions are these ones: absolute, all, any, ASCII, bin, and all of them right there. This is a full list right there. So this one starts from let's see, starts from here. Okay, go all the way up to there. All right. So let's look at few of them. Help. Let's look at the help. So help actually displays the documentation about your functions, methods, and keywords. Think of help as a mini manual for Python. So let's say I want to know the help. I want to know what sum does, okay, what this function sum does. Now sum is there. If you come back on top, you're going to find sum right here. PQRS right there, sum. Okay, I want to know what this sum does. So the way you do, you type print and help sum. So you use another inbuilt function called help, and that's going to tell you about sum. If you run this, that's going to tell you about sum, what sum does. Sum actually takes two parameters. Actually, it takes all these parameters. Iterable, and iterable actually is what it's going to iterate through. So this could be list, set, tuple, dictionary, anything that you can iterate over. And the start is equal to 0. Your default value is equal to 0. So it gives you a little bit information about this function, what it does. All right. Now let's say you want to know the help for, let me comment this out and let me uncomment this one. You want to know about the min. What is the function min does? Now the min is right here. If you go on top again, you will see min is, there it is. That's your min. Okay, so I want to know what this min does. You can type print help min. Run this, and that's going to give you about min. And there you go. Min. It tells me what the min does. With a single iterable argument, returns its smallest item. Okay, and likewise, you can determine each one of these functions, help on each one of the function, max, sorted, and so on and so forth. You can also determine the help. You can also find the help on true. Like these are my keywords. Remember, true is my keyword. So this is my keyword right there, true. Where is my true? Right there. I want to know what this is all about. Okay, I want to know some. I want to look at some documentation on true. So just type print help true. Okay, so I type print help true. Run this, and now it's going to tell me about there's a help on a Boolean object. It's telling you it's a Boolean object. It tells you everything about true. Okay, so this way you can get help on any one of these. You can get help on sorted too. Like it tells you what it does. It returns a new list containing all items from an iterable in ascending order. Okay. All right. Next topic is sum, min, max, sorted. So let's look at some of these. So let's look at some of these inbuilt function. Okay. So let's look at sum, min, max, sorted. So let's say I have a numbers 375 minus 1. This is a list of numbers and I want to add them all together. So there is an inbuilt function called sum. Okay, there's an inbuilt function called sum that's going to add them all together. If I want to find the minimum of the numbers, there's an inbuilt function called min, and I print my result. It gives me the minimum. Okay, prints for the minimum. I want to find the maximum of the numbers. Okay, so there's a function, inbuilt function called max. It's going to take the list and it's going to return the maximum of this list right here. All right, so that's what's happening over here. It's printing the maximum, and also if I want the sorted, I can use the sorted right here. Okay, len. Sometime you want to know what is the length of your container, like your data, the container that's holding your data, what is the length of that? And this is where your len function comes. It actually tells you the size. Length function, it tells you the length of a list, string, tuple, set, dictionary, and so on and so forth. It tells you all that. So let's say I have fruits. Okay, let me run this. Let me comment this thing out. Okay, so I have fruits and guava, kiwi, mango, kiwi. This is a list, and I want to know what is the size of my this list. In this case, this is a simple list. You can manually check that, but in reality, when you come across real data, you cannot read this thing. It's going to take you forever. This is where your length function comes. If I run this, it gives me 4. There are 4 elements over here. All right. Now I want to know what is the length of my tuple. This is my tuple. This is my tuple bracket. So that makes it a tuple. I print my length of my tuple. In this case, it's going to give me 5 because there are 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And likewise, if I want to calculate the length of my set, in this case, this is my set bracket. Okay, so this is a set right here. And if I print this, it's going to print 3. There are 3 elements over here. So len is another function. It's another inbuilt function that counts this number of elements in a container. Then comes your integer, input, and float. Why do we need this function, by the way? So let's talk about the need for input function. Input function, we want interactive program. Okay, that's one of the advantage of an input function. That's one of the need of an input function. So let's say we have a program a equal to 5. Okay, we are defining 2 variables, a equal to 5, b equal to 7. And in this program, all it's doing is just adding a and b, and it's printing the sum. Okay, so answer equal to a plus b, and the sum is answer. If I run this, it produces my answer. The sum is 12. All right, no magic over here, nothing very fancy. It's simple addition. What if we want the user to supply input? Because over here, the user is not supplying input. It's actually written in the program. Okay, we want the user to enter the program. So we want a dynamic interaction. Okay, we want an interaction. And this is where your input comes. So same program. Now I'm going to be saying a equal to input. Enter your first number and then enter your second number. And then I'm going to print. Okay, let me run this first. Enter your first number. Let's say the user enters 3. Enter your second number. Let's say user enters 4. And then it prints out this message. You entered A and B. Okay, using my F string, I'm printing my A and B. It says, it prints out you entered 3 and 4. Then I also print out my type, what type A is. And as you can see, the type of A is class str. And I also print out the type of B. Okay, it's a class str. I'm using again F string over here. Okay, All right, then I might add my numbers. I add a plus b. Now the problem is this. I want to add the numbers and it's not adding the numbers. Basically, this is a string and this is a string. And because these two are string, it's concatenating them. So the answer is 3, 4, 34. It's taking 3, it's taking 4, and it's treating them as a string. And treating them as a string, it combines it, or in other words, the proper word is concatenates. It concatenates these two strings and it forms 34. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so I'm able to get my input from the user using input inbuilt function. Okay, but I'm not able to achieve what I wanted to achieve. I wanted to add them. And now enters your int function. Okay, the need for int function. So it takes the a and b, whatever the user enters over here. Okay, so let me run this. Enter your first number 3, enter my first second number 4, hit enter, and it prints my result. Your sum is 7. What I'm doing over here is I'm prompting the user to enter its first number. Okay, then I prompt the user again to enter the second number, and then I convert using my inbuilt int function. I convert my a into an integer, and the way I do is calling this int function. Likewise, I call my int function on b, and then my a and b are now my integer. Okay, then I do my a plus b, which is just fine. It does like 3 plus 4, and then I print my sum, and the answer is 7. So I'm using two inbuilt functions, input, okay, and int. So two inbuilt functions. All right, step 4. Now I convert my a and b, this a and b, I can convert into directly int. I don't need to actually put this a and b separately like this. I don't have to call my int and int separately. What I can do, I can just combine them. I can wrap my int around my input. So see, I'm taking input from the user. Okay, once the user gives me the input, I convert that into int. Okay, so I can do that directly. So if I run this, enter my first number 3, enter my second number 4, and there you go, your sum is 4. So it's taking an input from the user. Okay, it's coming in the form of a string. Then the string gets converted into integer by I'm using this int function. I'm wrapping this int function around input, and same thing I'm doing over here. And then I do my a plus b, that gives me the answer. Basically this thing is exactly same as this. The only difference is I'm just using my int over here directly. So I'm not actually I'm avoiding these two extra steps, okay, by putting my int around this input function. Okay, on a side note now, we can only convert whole numbers to integer, not text characters that are not whole numbers. So for example, let's look at this number right here. A equal to heebie-jeebie, some crazy character I type. Now if I try to convert this into a integer using int a, it's gonna throw me an error. And as you can see, I get an error. Okay, so it does not work. This is not gonna work. Likewise, if I try to convert a equal to 6.7, okay, this is 6.7. Again, this is a string variable. If I try to convert this into a integer, this is not going to work either. All right. Now, if I use a float variable, okay, I have a float variable 6.7, and I'm trying to convert this into an int right here. So let's do that, and it prints just fine. It actually removes the 0.7 and it prints 6 right there. Okay, it prints out 6. That's what's happening over here. Likewise, if I use a string, but I use a real number right there. Inside the string, I'm typing a real number, actually a whole number. And when I run this, it's going to work fine. So as long as your string contains a whole number, it's going to work fine. Otherwise, it's going to throw an error. Okay, so this is going to throw an error. But if you write 11, that's going to work fine. If I just say 6, okay, that's going to work fine too. Okay. Now, the problem with int. Int only expects an integer, right? If you go back on top, right here, What if I run this program again and I type now this time some float values 2.3, enter, and look, it gives me an error. What's happening is that this enter your first number is taking 2.3 and then I convert into integer, but it throws an error. It's not converting that. That's not what I want. Maybe I want to have a float, a fraction to, or maybe a decimal point two in my numbers. So let's run this again properly. Let's make it 3, 4. All right. So let's say I want to have a decimal number in my input. How would I do that? Well, enters your float right here. So float function, what it does, it allows the user to supply input with float values, meaning your decimal values. Float is basically just a fancy way of saying decimal numbers. That's all. Okay, now I run this, enter my first number, I enter 2.3, enter, and then I enter my second number. Let's say I enter 2.1, 2.1, enter, and there you go. You entered 2.1, sorry, you entered 2.3 and 2.1. Your product is 4.83. And what just happened over here was it took this string right here, okay, using my input inbuilt function, and then I use another inbuilt function float, and then I converted that into float, okay, and then I multiplied them together. It gave me this correct answer. All right, thank you, gentlemen.